healthy. I mean, Paul Kruger was the product of a very stacked Ravens team. He's never been an elite edge rusher. He's serviceable. He's a role player. He's not the guy that you have on their 3 downs, and guys like, we've had Bobby Richardson would slide outside and inside. He wasn't an answer. I mentioned Kakaha, Edebali tried to be the next Junior Galette, but he's shown that he's just role player level. He can come in there, do some edge work, but he's not starter quality. So, you've got to replace him. But even if they don't replace him, how can you look at Cameron Jordan? And right now, keep in mind that this isn't even through, but through 6 years, he's got 41.5 sacks. Through 6 years, he's got 7 forced fumbles. Through 6 years, he's got 20 run stuffs. How can you look at that stat line and be disappointed in this guy? It makes no sense to me, especially when we mention the fact that his rookie season, he only had 1 sack, and it was just a run stuffer that year. And after that, he has become an explosive threat in the passing game. 41.5 sacks is just phenomenal.
People don't pay attention to one word, and because of guys like J.J. Watt and Von Miller, they don't pay attention to the word consistent. That's what you get from Cam Jordan. He doesn't miss many games, and he's consistent. His numbers will show he's going to get you roughly right around 7 to 8 sacks per year. And again, this is without any help. So imagine what he could do if he had some. Because again, like you said, the year that he and Junior Galette had the sack race, both of the guys, were well over 10 sacks. So by the way, they didn't have a great D tackles, in the nose either. Those guys basically just had an edge rush party. Like, hey, you know what? You go this way, I'll go that way. We'll meet at the quarterback. They didn't have great D tackles. Now the Saints actually have legit D tackles. Nick Fairley is playing like a guy who's trying to play for a contract. Contract year for him, he's going to get it. He's trying to play like a guy that has incentive-laden contract. Good for him. If you needed the motivation, cool. Whatever it takes to go get it. So when Sheldon Rankins gets back, you have that rotation of Nick Fairley, Sheldon Rankin, Tyler Davison, as well as, Onyemata, who's trying. He's a raw prospect, but heck, if you could just go, beat a guy up for a couple of snaps and give Tyler Davison some time to rest, then you've done your job. But what they don't have, in 5 players now, is they don't have a guy opposite Cam, and Cam he's suffering because of that. And it's not only he is suffering, but the defense as a whole, because Crowley he's adequate, and he's proven himself to be a very, very stable guy, and the idea that he can get beat by a play and come back the very next one, and it's not going to bother him that he got beat by the last play. And, he's had a trial by fire unlike any other. So, you got to kind of salute the guy and just, give him his kudos. But who else do you have at corner? Sterling Moore is a journeyman. B.W. Webb, nobody knew who B.W. Webb was before he signed with the Saints. I almost dare anybody to tell me they knew his career or what college he went to prior to him signing with the Saints. So this is who you have at corner right now. The best thing you can do to help him out is get somebody that can go to get to the quarterback. And Cam can't do it by himself. Neither can Nick Fairley. But the way the world is right now for the Saints, you're gonna have to go. You have to go to war with the guys that are there, because I don't see any help that's available on the free agent market. Even if you signed a guy like Cromartie, and I hope they don't, that would just be a disaster if they did. But if you sign a guy like Cromartie, he's not going to rush the passer. Plain and simple. Corner is not your biggest need right now along the defense. You've got Bro coming back. That should help out. Safety could be a concern as far as depth purposes, but you still have Bird if he can, at least give you some snaps, if not spectacular. Just be adequate. Finally, for once in your Saints career. But linebacker, that's where the Saints need help. Linebacker and a pass rusher. That would be supposed to be back this week, but what's he going to give you? 2 snaps, and then he's going to sit the next 4 games out?
Well, the big thing with Ellerbe is he's our best coverage linebacker, hands down. If he is healthy, him alone, Louisiana education coming through, Bobby Jindal. He alone could flip what has been a very poor passing defense, simply because, nobody else can cover. Craig Robinson can't cover. James Laurinaitis can't cover. Stephon Anthony obviously can't cover because he's riding the pine for the fact that he can't learn a position that requires him to cover. I mean, but Ellerbe can. I mean, right now the Saints are giving up, I think, opponent targets per catch. For every target, we're giving up a passing percentage of right at 69%, which is basically right at towards the worst in the league. And we're also giving up 8.2 yards per passing play, which is 27th in the league. The passing defense is what's killing us. The run defense, you take away that Freeman game, which he just seemed unstoppable. 150 of his rushing yards, 120 of those 150 came with him not being touched on the line. So he just had wide open gaps and was having a field day. But you really take away that, this run defense has been extremely strong with Tyler Davis and Cam Jordan, Nick Fairley, and, Kruger and the linebackers. So, man, Ellerbe coming in might be able to finally stabilize us to a point where we wait for Bro to get back. Second half defense looks completely different from first half defense, but that's a lot of speculation and that's a lot of hope, especially if I'm relying on Ellerbe to play, more than half a season.
Imagine what the Saints linebacking core would look like. James Laurinaitis aside, Stephon Anthony aside, but just with these three guys, because all of them seem to be just about the same type of player. If you had Craig Robertson in the middle, Ellerbe on the weak side, and Stupar playing strong side, these guys seem to be the same type guys that can play in space and play with range. And to me, that's what the Saints need right now. It goes back to what we were speaking on earlier about putting your best 11 guys on the field. I don't care how you do it. Just get it done. And if that means you have to, just swallow your pride and say, okay, James, thanks for coming. We appreciate it, but, we're going to let Craig start at the middle. Then that's what you do. At this point, it's not about pride. It's about W's. You need to win. And if you lose to the Carolina Panthers, a depleted Carolina Panthers team, at this point, Carolina on a short week, playing a Saints team that, a division opponent, you have everything in your favor to win this game because Carolina's confidence right now is shot. Make no mistake about it. They lost the game 17-14, but Carolina was getting beat that game by a bad Tampa team who was also playing really horrible football. Carolina got beat by a bad team. Their confidence right now is lower than low. You lose that game to the Carolina Panthers, the Saints season is over. And for me, that speaks volumes if you lose that game because everything is on your favor. Again, I don't see Cam Newton playing. I don't see him playing.
Yeah, and if they don't play, it's really hard for me to imagine the Saints losing. Now, granted that they have found ways to do that before in the past, so, let's not take it out as impossible. But if Cam Newton's gone, Carolina's really done for the year. Saints have a chance to build some momentum going forward. But we'll see what happens. But even then, we still have to execute on our end, and that's going to be difficult because I can't name a person on our defense who can cover Kelvin Benjamin all game. Kenny Vaccaro might be able to cover Olsen because he's done really well covering tight ends his career, especially solid tight ends like Olsen. He's seen them a lot, but there's still a lot of weapons that can beat us. I can't put it all on Cam Newton. They have to come out and play football. Mark Ingram needs to, run for more than 3 or 4 yards a touch. He needs to start pounding into this Carolina defense that the one thing that they have managed to still do is play stout against the run because they have an amazing linebacker core and still a solid defensive line, even though it's not one of the better ones in the NFL. And Drew Brees has to come out and play like Drew Brees and not play like the Drew Brees who feels like he has to pressure throws and is throwing interceptions and behind his receivers. He's got to play calm, cool, collected Drew because the older he's getting, the more those forced passes are missing. And people are wondering if he's injured again, and I don't know if he is. I don't like to speculate on injuries. I don't like to even say he is injured. Cam Newton, I say, is injured because we've seen him injured and he's listed as injured. But Drew, until they come out and say Drew Brees has got a rotator cuff injury again or something like that, I don't want to think he does. I think he performed poorly in the second half of San Diego based on emotion. He wanted that game. He wanted that San Diego game bad. He prayed on the spot that his shoulder was torn up before the game. He wanted to go into San Diego and prove San Diego wrong for doubting him. So he was forcing passes to try to make that happen. I think that's why he threw those interceptions. Personal
totally
opinion,
agree with you.
That's speculation. You can disagree with it. That's cool. But I think he is Drew Brees, and he can throw 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions. But he has to come up and actually do that. This Carolina game is a perfect opportunity. Why, you might ask? Well, for one, what's one thing Drew Brees really seems to struggle at? Playing on the road. Anybody ever notice that? He struggles playing on the road. Well, he doesn't have to do that against Carolina but once a year, and he doesn't have to do it this Sunday. And being in the Dome is a big advantage for Drew. Everybody likes to say that the Saints are fine outside, but they're really not. Drew plays better at the Dome.
I think you're spot on with your analysis just now, especially when it comes to Drew Brees and not only him playing on the road, but him having to play well against Carolina and not forcing the ball. And I definitely will say this, without giving too much away. I won't say my score just yet, but I will say the Saints are winning this game. And I haven't been this confident about a Saints win in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's going to, I spoke on the game last week, and I did mention, I said that I think the Saints had to win ugly. Winning in blowout fashion wouldn't have been right for that team because they had to experience what it was like to win a close one. To kind of, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. They had to win a game like that. This time, I think the Saints are going to have to roll a team that they're supposed to beat. They gave away one against Oakland. They gave away one against New York. Hell, you definitely gave away one against the Falcons because you lose by 13 points and you gave away 14 on stupid plays, a pick six and a muff punt. But now you get a team that's lacking confidence, and I think the Saints are ready to pounce on them. And I think it's going to be one of those games in which Mark Ingram is going to be the feature because if anybody knows Jaquiz Rodgers, he was cast away in Atlanta. They didn't even want him. He was supposed to be their Darren Sproles type of running back, their Reggie Bush type of back. Couldn't get it done. Last night he runs for over 100 yards against Carolina. Jaquiz Rodgers. So imagine what Mark Ingram would do if Sean Payton can stick with the run. And I don't think Mark's going to need very many carries in order to do it. I think Carolina's going to be ready for the Saints to come out and throw the ball all over the place. And I think Mark's going to have a good game.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like the Saints are going to win this game because, again, no Cam Newton. I can't see Carolina playing this game. And I know I keep saying no Cam Newton as if it's a matter of fact. I just can't see Ron Rivera wanting to gamble playing. If this was a home game for Carolina, I think Cam Newton would play. But it's a road game on a short week. I don't think Ron Rivera is going to risk it. Maybe he will because from what I understand, he's now on the hot seat once again.
Well, it's crazy to me. How can you take a team to the Super Bowl and then, in terms of a season, 6 weeks later, your job's on the line? That just blows my mind. Give the guy some time to rebuild that defense he lost.
Especially when I don't think it was his doing that the defense was, I guess, catapulted in the wrong direction. It's not. I don't think Ron Ver was the guy who said, you know what, we don't need Josh Norman. I think that was Dave Gettleman, who decided that he wasn't going to pay Josh Norman what he was asking for.
And what he deserved.
Exactly, especially for that defense, which is something that, goes to be. Sometimes a guy is just a good fit. Richard Sherman may be a really good cornerback, but we'll never know. Because right now, all we know is he's one of the game's elite because he plays in that Seattle system. You don't have to leave your system. You don't have. If you want to be a system guy, but be great at it. That's what Richard Sherman was. That's what Richard Sherman is. That's what Josh Norman was. And right now, he's doing the same thing for Washington, and nobody's talking about it. I mean, he's not being targeted a whole lot over there at Washington. So, when it comes to Carolina, they lost their
he's catching the same flack that Patrick Peterson was catching. Was it Peterson or was it Sherman about how he's only guarding one side of the field and he doesn't switch to the their best receiver and everything? And I think honestly I wouldn't matter. I'd rather have, because we've seen corners who try to do the whole cover a guy all over the field, and it didn't work. And the first one that comes to mind, and this is taking a few